You awaken one morning, and the person staring back at you in the mirror is unrecognizable. The warmth that once lived in your eyes has vanished. The kindness that defined you for years has quietly slipped away like sand through desperate fingers. You look at your reflection and wonder, when did I become this person? When did the compassion I carried so carefully turn to cold indifference? This is not a story about villains or monsters. This is about something far more terrifying. It is about what happens when a good man, someone who has spent years being patient, understanding, and gentle, finally reaches the end of his capacity for kindness. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who ruled Rome with wisdom and grace, understood this transformation better than most. He lived it. He wrote about it. He warned us about it. Today we are going to explore one of the most haunting questions about human nature. What happens when a good man's kindness dies? By the end of this journey, you will understand the mechanisms that kill compassion in even the noblest souls. More importantly, you will learn how to recognize the warning signs before it is too late. The final insight we will uncover together is the most crucial, because it holds the key to preserving your humanity in a world that constantly tests it. Stay with me, because what you discover today might save you from a fate worse than any external suffering, the loss of your own gentle heart. Marcus Aurelius spent much of his life carrying burdens that would have broken lesser men. He ruled an empire constantly at war. He faced betrayal from those closest to him. He lost children, endured physical pain, and witnessed the worst of human cruelty. Yet throughout his meditations, we see a man desperately trying to hold on to his kindness, his compassion, his belief in human goodness. But there are moments in his writings where we catch glimpses of something darker. Moments where the weight of disappointment and repeated harm threatens to extinguish the light he worked so hard to maintain. He writes about frustration with people who refuse to learn, anger at injustice, weariness from constantly forgiving those who never change. These are not the words of a man untouched by darkness. They are the words of someone fighting daily to prevent his kindness from dying. This is the reality that most people refuse to acknowledge. Kindness is not infinite. It is not an endless resource that regenerates no matter how much abuse it endures. Kindness is like a flame. It requires fuel. It requires protection. And when subjected to constant winds of cruelty, indifference, and exploitation, it can and does go out. Think about your own life for a moment. Can you remember a time when you gave and gave and gave until there was nothing left? When you extended compassion to someone who took it for granted? When you forgave someone repeatedly only to be hurt in the exact same way again? How did it feel? Did something inside you begin to harden? Did you notice yourself becoming more guarded, more cynical, less willing to trust? This is the beginning of what happens when kindness starts to die. Before we go deeper, I want to speak directly to those of you who are currently struggling with this very thing. If you have been the kind person, the understanding one, the person everyone turns to when they need help, and you are starting to feel that warmth inside you turning cold, you are not alone. This channel exists for people like you, people who are trying to navigate the complex territory between maintaining their goodness and protecting themselves from being destroyed by a world that often punishes kindness. If this resonates with you, consider subscribing, because we are going to explore these difficult truths together. We are going to learn from Marcus Aurelius and other great thinkers how to preserve our humanity without becoming victims of it. This is not about becoming hard or bitter. It is about finding a sustainable way to remain good in a world that constantly tests that goodness. Now let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this before you answer. Have you ever felt your kindness being drained away piece by piece? Have you reached a point where you caught yourself thinking, I do not care anymore? If you have, I want you to do something. Leave a comment below with the words, my kindness is exhausted. You do not need to explain anything else if you do not want to. Just those 3 words. Why am I asking you to do this? Because when we acknowledge these feelings out loud, even anonymously, it breaks the isolation. It reminds us that this struggle is not a personal failing. It is a deeply human experience. Your comment might be the thing that helps someone else realize they are not alone in this. It might be the permission someone needs to finally admit what they have been feeling in silence. So go ahead, pause for a moment and leave that comment. My kindness is exhausted. We will be here when you come back. Understanding what kills kindness requires us to look honestly at the mechanisms involved. Marcus Aurelius identified several forces that erode the human capacity for compassion, and if we are not vigilant, these forces will slowly but inevitably transform even the gentlest soul into something unrecognizable. The first and perhaps most insidious force is betrayal. Not the dramatic movie version of betrayal, but the quiet, everyday kind. The friend who only calls when they need something. The family member who takes advantage of your generosity. The colleague who claims credit for your work. The partner who exploits your understanding nature. Marcus Aurelius dealt with betrayal at the highest levels. He was surrounded by people who smiled to his face while plotting behind his back. Yet he wrote extensively about the importance of not allowing betrayal to poison his character. He understood something profound. When we allow the actions of others to determine who we become, we give them power over the most sacred part of ourselves. But here is the difficult truth. Knowing this intellectually and actually maintaining your kindness after repeated betrayal are two entirely different things. Each betrayal takes something from you. It creates a small wound, and while one wound might heal, dozens or hundreds of wounds over years create scar tissue. That scar tissue is what people call becoming hardened. It is your soul's attempt to protect itself. The second force that kills kindness is exhaustion. Compassion fatigue is real. When you spend years being the emotional support for everyone around you, absorbing their pain, solving their problems, offering endless patience and understanding, you eventually run out. Your capacity for empathy becomes depleted. Marcus Aurelius wrote often about weariness, the weight of empire, the constant demands, the never-ending stream of people needing something from him. He practiced what we might call radical self-care today, reminding himself to retreat inward, to find moments of solitude, to reconnect with his own inner resources. But even he struggled. Even with all his wisdom and philosophical training, there are passages where you can feel his exhaustion seeping through the words. This should tell us something important. If a man as disciplined and wise as Marcus Aurelius struggled with compassion fatigue, what chance do the rest of us have if we do not actively protect our inner resources? The third force is disillusionment. This might be the most painful one of all. Disillusionment happens when your fundamental beliefs about human nature or about specific people are shattered. You discover that the person you trusted completely was lying to you. You realize that your efforts to help someone have been wasted because they never intended to change. You watch good people suffer while cruel people prosper, and you start to question whether kindness even matters. Marcus Aurelius grappled with this constantly. As emperor, he saw humanity at its absolute worst. Corruption, cruelty, stupidity, selfishness. Yet he fought to maintain his belief that human beings are capable of reason and goodness. He wrote reminders to himself not to become cynical, not to give in to bitterness, not to let the behavior of others determine his own character. But you can sense the effort required. These were not easy affirmations. They were desperate attempts to hold on to something precious that was constantly under attack. The fourth force is isolation. This one often goes unnoticed until it is too late. When you are the kind person, the giver, the one who always understands, people often fail to recognize that you have needs too. They do not think to ask how you are doing because you always seem fine. They do not offer support because you are always the one providing it. Over time, this creates a profound isolation. You begin to feel that your kindness is a one-way street, that you exist merely to serve others' emotional needs while your own go unmet. Marcus Aurelius, despite being surrounded by thousands of people, was deeply isolated. The nature of his position meant he could trust almost no one. His meditations were private, never meant for publication. They were his way of processing his isolation, of reminding himself of truth and virtue when surrounded by deception and vice. This isolation, this sense that you are fundamentally alone in your commitment to goodness, can slowly strangle kindness, because kindness requires hope. It requires a belief that your actions matter, that they create positive ripples in the world. When isolation makes you question this, kindness begins to feel pointless. Now here is where things get truly interesting. Marcus Aurelius discovered something that modern psychology is only beginning to understand. The death of kindness is not actually about other people. It is about what happens inside us when we lose touch with our core principles. He realized that authentic kindness, the kind that endures, must come from a place deeper than emotion. It must be rooted in philosophy, in chosen principles, in a commitment that transcends feeling. This is why he constantly reminded himself of Stoic principles, not because he was naturally detached, but because he needed those reminders to maintain his kindness when everything in his experience suggested he should harden his heart. He wrote that when you wake in the morning, tell yourself the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. But he did not write this to justify becoming harsh. He wrote it to prepare himself mentally, so that when people behaved badly, he would not be surprised or wounded. He would remain kind not because people deserved it, but because he chose it as a reflection of his own character. This brings us to perhaps the most important insight. When a good man's kindness dies, what actually dies is not his capacity for compassion. What dies is his hope. Hope that things will get better, hope that people will change, hope that his kindness will be reciprocated or at least acknowledged. When hope dies, kindness dies with it, because kindness without hope becomes unbearable. It becomes foolishness. It becomes self-destruction. Marcus Aurelius understood this, which is why he worked so carefully to maintain realistic hope. Not naive optimism, but grounded hope, based on philosophical truth. He found hope in the idea that acting virtuously was its own reward regardless of external outcomes. He found hope in the belief that his actions shaped his character, which was the only thing truly within his control. He found hope in the connection between all human beings, the idea that we are part of something larger than ourselves. But what happens when even this philosophical hope begins to crack? What happens when you have tried everything, when you have practiced every technique, reminded yourself of every principle, and still you feel the kindness draining away? This is the moment of ultimate crisis, the moment when a good man stands at a crossroads. One path leads to bitterness, cynicism, hardness. The other path requires something almost superhuman. It requires the ability to grieve. You must grieve the loss of your naive kindness. You must grieve the innocence that believed the world was fundamentally fair and that goodness would be rewarded. You must grieve the relationships that betrayed you, the efforts that were wasted, the pain that was inflicted. This grieving is not weakness. It is absolutely necessary, because you cannot transform your kindness into something more sustainable, something more resilient, without first acknowledging what has been lost. Marcus Aurelius grieved. You can feel it in his writing. The sadness, the weariness, the recognition that the world is not what he wished it to be. But he did not let that grief destroy him. He let it transform him. And this is where we arrive at the most powerful truth of all, the kindness that emerges after this crisis, after this death and grieving, is not the same kindness you started with. It is something far more valuable. It is what we might call wise kindness or discerning kindness. It is kindness with boundaries, kindness with self-respect, kindness that can say no. This new kindness does not give endlessly to people who exploit it. It does not martyr itself for those who refuse to help themselves. It does not ignore red flags or make endless excuses for harmful behavior. But neither is it bitter or cruel or withholding. It is kind strategically, intentionally, to those who reciprocate and appreciate it, to situations where it can actually make a difference, to itself first, so that it has something genuine to offer others. Marcus Aurelius embodied this evolved kindness. He was generous, but not foolish. He was forgiving, but not a doormat. He maintained his principles while also maintaining his boundaries. He found a way to remain fundamentally good while living in a world that constantly tested that goodness. So if you are someone whose kindness is dying or has already died, hear this. You are not broken. You are not beyond repair. You are in the middle of a transformation. The old, naive kindness had to die so that something stronger could be born in its place. Your task now is not to resurrect what was lost. Your task is to build something new. Start by reconnecting with your core values. Not what others expect of you, but what you genuinely believe about how you want to move through the world. Be honest about what has hurt you. Stop pretending you are fine when you are not. Acknowledge the exhaustion, the betrayal, the disappointment. Let yourself feel it. Then begin the work of setting boundaries. This will feel wrong at first because you have been conditioned to believe that kindness means endless availability and accommodation. It does not. Practice saying no without guilt. Practice prioritizing your own needs. Practice letting people experience the consequences of their actions instead of constantly rescuing them. Seek out reciprocal relationships. Pay attention to who actually shows up for you. Invest your energy there. Let the relationships that only drain you fade. This is not cruelty. This is wisdom. And most importantly, remember what Marcus Aurelius knew. Your kindness is precious. It is one of your greatest assets. But it must be protected, nurtured, and directed wisely. You do not owe the world your destruction. You do not have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. The world needs your kindness, yes, but it needs you to survive with that kindness intact. It needs the version of you that has learned to be kind without being consumed by it. As we close, I want you to understand something fundamental. The death of naive kindness is painful, but necessary. It makes room for mature compassion, for strategic generosity, for love that includes self-love. Marcus Aurelius spent his life walking this razor edge between maintaining his humanity and protecting himself from those who would exploit it. He did not always succeed. There were moments of frustration, anger, despair in his writings, but he kept trying. He kept returning to his principles. He kept choosing to remain good even when the world gave him every reason not to. You can do the same. Your kindness can be reborn stronger, wiser, more sustainable. But first, you must let the old version die. You must grieve it. And then you must consciously choose what kind of person you want to be going forward. The question is not whether you will remain kind. The question is what form your kindness will take. Will it be the exhausting, boundaryless version that leads to burnout and bitterness? Or will it be the wise, discerning version that Marcus Aurelius cultivated? The choice, as always, is yours. Thank you for journeying through this difficult territory with me today. Your presence here tells me you are someone who cares deeply, who has struggled with these questions, who is trying to find a way to remain good in a challenging world. That matters. You matter. Take care of your kindness. It is one of the most valuable things you possess.